Digitization, September 29, 1975. Good evening. Do you want book dictation first or personal material? Ralph said, well, you had better talk about Jane. They said, give us a moment. This evening, tissues and muscles were literally being rejuvenated. Ruber was involved in a process when he initiated the symptoms, in which certain highly specific areas were directly affected and their function impaired. Other areas then had to react by setting up their own systems, sometimes of counter-tension. The basic specific areas became largely inactive. They did not demand the same amount of nourishment. This is a simplification, but the cells were put in a kind of dry storage. To an extent, the tissues involved became smaller, dry, less elastic, less demanding of nourishment. They curled up, so to speak. At the same time, because of Ruber's own purposes, they were perfectly preserved. Not for instance attacked in any fashion, but in many ways isolated from the rest of bodily activity. The rest of the body, however, had to work around these difficulties. Certain alternate muscular cooperations were set up that served to keep overall muscular functions going and kept the body working under impaired conditions. A certain network of small dams were set up by the symptoms. These held back full circulation to the specific tissues. All of these incidentally involves the same amazing discrimination that is used in the organization of any physical symptoms, so that specific purposes are met. The entire miniature system of dams has been dissolving since our last session. Small floodgates have opened, little by little, as the muscles have been newly activated. As they were, they demanded more and more nourishment. Some of the soreness was the result of the expansion of tissue, the period between a new expansion and the resulting fresh nourishment set to cellular structures. Finally, this evening, muscular expansion had gone as far as it could without a completely fresh influx, and the final breaking down of the small dams. The sudden circulation flowed through the tissues that were unaccustomed to it, and further expanded them. This will allow the body to dismiss some of the alternate muscular cooperation set up that served to support the body under poor conditions. The body could not dismiss these until the newly activated muscles began to come into their own, where they could be counted upon to maintain balance in a normal manner. Certain less than perfect muscular habits had been set up, therefore, to maintain balance. These can now begin to fade as the newly activated muscles begin to take over. Give us a moment. There are various degrees of pressure in the body, supporting the organs, joints, and so forth. Any alterations are reflected in that inner pressure. The added circulation does indeed cushion muscles and joints, allowing for easy motion. What was undone in several hours this evening took a year and a half to set up. Of course, it was precisely points involving motion that were impaired. Ruber has excellent knowledge of the body's motor capacities on an unconscious level. The exterior motion is obviously the result of inner connections that are now being released in the proper way. The release of a small unknown muscle, short and innocuous in the foot, might activate another in the shoulder in the precise order necessary that will act as a stimulus, say, for a joint someplace else. Ruber is aware of many of these sensations, so that he consciously will have some knowledge of how his own body works, and will be able from now on to have a greater conscious knowledge of its condition. He knows now, as areas are released, and automatically keeps watch. He will understand how the body feelings serve as important informative data. All of this is occurring because he is beginning to understand that you do indeed live in a safe universe. The body's condition followed precisely as I said it would when last I discussed it. You can expect, then, continuing improvement following the patterns just given. The cushioning of muscles and joints will allow first for easier motion and easier walking, that is, without such inner gratings. Gradually, the body will right itself position-wise as the newly activated muscles take over. They are still some, however, newly activated, that are not yet functioning properly. They will, following the procedures given. They are small areas that interconnect with others, and they are simply learning to work together again. Now, give us a moment. At the risk of repeating myself, you, Ralph noted to me, Seth, can no longer equivocate either. When you find yourself in a period of distress, it is because you do not trust your safety. You cannot live in a safe universe and an unsafe one at the same time. You have to make a complete choice. If you choose a safe universe, then you may indeed find some old habitual ideas, thoughts or beliefs coming to haunt you. Those belonged to the unsafe universe, and made perfect sense there, and there they still do. When you change your affiliation and find yourself now and then encountering such feelings, and they are always one way or another feelings of insecurity, then admit to yourself that while they made sense in the unsafe universe, they do not belong in the safe one. Literally, such feelings make no sense in a safe universe. They are literally meaningless. Your body reacts to feelings of insecurity by retreating to whatever degree, slight or occasional, or with determined persistence, your body or anyone else's, as long as you really believe you live in a state of threat. Ruber has recently used the suggestion, infinite intelligence leads me and guides me in all my ways. If you thoroughly understood what that means, then you do indeed live and experience a safe universe. Your pendulum will give you the specific reasons for any difficulties. But behind these ever-changing reasons is always the sense of insecurity you feel when you believe the universe is against you to whatever degree. It works with you when you let it, and you attract to yourself all of those conditions that are cooperative to your ventures. I am going to hit on some unpopular topics, so bear with me. You have heard some of this before. Give us a moment. 1 point. I said that your universe was safe. I never said that it was perfect. Now, when you anticipate problems from practice, you attract them. You do not know what would happen. Pragmatically, if you did not imagine such difficulties, because in one way or another, you have always anticipated them from the beginning. You had no such ideas of a safe universe then. There are people in any organization who are in the habit of stubby work. There are also people in any organization who have fairly decent standards of excellence. But even the stubby workers will indeed pick up your ideas of excellence and try to translate them, finding even a new satisfaction in their work, but only if you think of what you want as a product, and not what you fear you will get instead. You seem to have quite decent elements in the past to point to. Of course, you do. The reasons should be clear. When Ruber wants flexibility, you see that it is dumbness for him to concentrate upon his lack of motion. In the same way, if you want excellent art reproductions in a book, it is dumbness to concentrate upon the inaccuracies and errors that might happen instead. Ruber's symptoms made sense in an unsafe universe. He needed protection, he felt. Your feelings about Prentice made sense in an unsafe universe, where you had to protect the essence of your vision from incompetence. You can make that leap into the safe universe, just as Ruber is. The leaping is a process of growth, so in your turns, give yourself time, but do not equivocate. Your own annoying physical symptoms have been caused largely because of the matters just mentioned, either worrying over unknown reality or painting or Ruber. Beneath it all, however, is the insecurity resulting from passé beliefs in the unsafeness of the universe. Take a break, or anesthesia as you prefer. Ralph said, "We'll take a break." Now, I have some suggestions for you that should be of considerable help. When you find yourself at all in any kind of physical discomfort, quietly remind yourself that you do indeed believe you live in a safe universe, and this will remind the body and allow it to relax. As far as the book is concerned, change your habits of thought. Easier said than done, and yet quite possible. Think of what you want in a book. See it clearly. Imagine it existing without any interference or disturbances, simply easily as a mental image. This sends out what you want. Think of all of the unknown elements cooperating to help bring about that creation. Then your visions will be physically actualized. You will be doing something constructive to bring them about. The method is unbeatable, and is the way to actualize any kind of really creative venture. When things work well, you do this automatically. You have each been in a period of transition. You cannot give grace to levels of growth. You are now bringing up to par certain conditions that lagged behind, while in other areas you went ahead. Now you are rightening the inequities, so to speak. I know the contours of your minds and consciousnesses far better than you may imagine. It is time when all of your efforts suddenly bear fruit, when inner techniques have been practiced, and suddenly click into focus and actuality. So you are as such a springboard, when your understanding does propel you into a quantum leap of understanding. Later it seems simple. This can be compared to what you said to Ruber concerning your paintings today. Only instead life is involved. It is the painting that is suddenly simple. Give us a moment. My new book is progressing at its proper pace, following certain contours of Ruber's consciousness also. As his psyche expands, I do not like an over-reliance on terms. Many of the ones that I have used are simply guidelines, because people insist upon definitions. My new book will break beyond the concept of counterpaths, as that concept broke beyond the concept of reincarnation. The terms are handy to describe certain affiliations and experiences of the psyche. In greater terms, however, those experiences and affiliations overlap. They are, unfortunately, for neat definitions. No definite, absolute, complete boundaries. They are leaping, explosive, volatile, rapidly altering relationships in which psyche touches psyche. Force an attraction or mutual response that can be both internal and fleeting, never destroyed or forgotten, there as a trance or as an overwhelming experience. There are psychic affiliations that defy language. The term reincarnation hints at some. Counterparts hint of others. Probable selves evoke still other such experiences. In greater terms, the psyche is always in a state of creative change. Counterparts can alter affiliations, a fact I did not mention earlier, simply because then it would have added a confusion. To one extent or another, you can pick up on any personality, living or dead, historically or in the future, but in any future, because in far more complicated ways, each psyche contains within it the experience and the knowledge of others. You change your viewpoint in the universe, and you are someone else, yet you are still yourself. Very difficult to explain, in certain ways. However, besides this, you and Ruber have always been related. You have been aware of each other's intents, feelings, and purposes. Now you can say that you were out of the same cloth. Rob noted, amused but intent. They said your entire lives this time have been leading toward this new affiliation mentioned earlier. You, Rob noted, me. They said, even arranged it so that the kind of art you wanted to do could not be done in the accepted framework of artistic reference, but would necessitate such a growth of consciousness. You chose problems, each of you, challenges that would lead to such a development. I will tell you now that that leap is assured, for had it not been assured in what seems to be your future, I would not have emerged in your past. Again, this is difficult to explain, because you did succeed. Our relationship was inserted into the past. Time constantly expands in all directions and along every conceivable point. Nothing vanishes. The idea of counterparts was meant to lead you beyond time-oriented reincarnational ideas. Now, in one context, those ideas are valid, but they are also deceiving, because your present focus will determine which reincarnational episodes you become aware of. In that context, two lives in 1 century, overlapping, seem contradictory, but I tell you all along that you live many lives at once. End of session, and I hope I have been of some practical help also. My fondest good evening. Ralph said, thank you very much, said good night.